welcome to chapter 17 of my Mazda RX323 resto videos. In this chapter I get stuck into the fuel system. I've got lots of parts. I have about 3 or 4 goes about getting all the fittings right for this car. Gee, it was a real pain. I thought I'd worked it all out, nutted it all out, what fittings I needed, what sizes I needed, what threads I needed. But it was a pain. But anyhow, I've got it all sorted and get it all fitted up, run the fuel lines to the back of the tank, and fix up the braided lines under the bonnet, put my fuel filter on, mount the fuel pump. Yeah, so I hope you enjoy it. So I'm just taking a bit of a break from doing the fuel system, and one thing that's really annoyed me is here. It's the alternator, the bolt for the alternator, and this is the spacing. So there's like a big nut and some shims in there. So I want to get rid of this and just put a spacer in there. So that's going to be my next task. So I've measured the gap for the spacer that needs to be, and that's it. It's exactly 23 mil. So then I'll just drag that measurement around. And this is an aluminium block, and I've measured that. It's been cut off. So I've just got to trim off that excess, which is only about 6 or 7 mil. I'll trim that off and then just bore out the hole just a bit bigger, and then I'll have my spacer. That's perfect. Surprised myself there. So there we have it. I've just trimmed that off, but now the bolt that goes through here is a 10 mil bolt, so I'm not sure my drill will take a 10 mil drill, so I might have to go around to the old man's house and drill it out. So I've got my spacer. I've just come back from my mum and dad's. It's all drilled out, ready to go. So I'm about to plonk that in there. Much better. So I've gone and bought a few more things. So one of the things I've bought is this fuel sender unit. And as you see here, because I need some way to have a bigger pickup out of my fuel tank. See, I actually don't need any of this. So if I unscrew that, throw that in the bin, it leaves me with this, which is a good flat, sturdy steel cap, a gasket, and a supporting ring, and there's some bolts in the kit which will then bolt that on the fuel tank. So the plan is then just to fit a fitting, drill this out a bit and fit a fitting, a bulkhead fitting in here which seals on there, and then put that on the fuel tank. So I can drill that out a bit larger and then cut a hole in the fuel tank, so then I've got another pickup which will either in the side of the tank, which then will go down into the bottom of the tank with a bit larger pickup, and then run that round down all my new fuel lines. So that's going to be one of my next jobs. And also got some more stuff here. Newspaper. This is like pasta parcel. So some braided fuel line, and these are the fittings. So this is the fitting. So the plan is to drill that out, put that onto there, to drill that a bit larger, that'll seal against there. And then I've got a nut as well. There's the nut which will clamp that all together. And I got some more washers just in case I needed them. So, let's see how that goes. Okay, so I've got my tank here. So I'm about to put the new feed. So this is the, I'm going to make this a return. I was originally going to do, drill a hole here, but you can't really get into the tank and get anything on the back of it. It's just without drilling a bigger hole. So what this was the original pickup, just here. You can see it's quite small. It's only probably about 5/16. So I'm going to make that the return, and I'm going to put my new pickup, which I'm going to make through this plate here, over here. I think this is the best position. I've got lots of other positions that are nice flat surfaces underneath, but here at the top of the tank, it's less likely to leak, so this is going to be my spot. So that's a nice flat area. So I've center punched right in the middle, and I've center punched through the 5 individual bolt holes. So now I'm just going to drill out the center hole with a hole saw, which will be roughly that big. So I'll drill a small pilot hole right through the center first, and then I'll drill these little holes as well with a small drill, and then go from there. Okay, so I've just drilled out the fitting. You can see I've drilled out the hole and chamfered it. So now this fitting, see it's got an O-ring on there as well, so that should seal up against there. It's quite a neat fit, so got to be careful not to damage the thread. So remember, this is the top of the fuel sender unit that I bought. So that'll go on there like that. And then on the other side I've got a nylon washer and a lock nut that'll just squash it together like that. So then that will go there. So this is the ring that goes into here. It's got to go in the tank. So you're probably wondering, how do we get that this into the tank with all the only small holes? Well, you do this. You chop it, and then you feed it in like that, and then hope that you don't drop it in. So it's got to go in like that. So I've got my fitting now. That's all done and tightened. You can see that's all ready to go for that end, and inside here there's a seal which is tight, and I've tightened up this hole, and it's going to just feed in like that. Need my gasket. There we go, that's all fitted up now and looking good. And I didn't drop anything into the tank yet, still. So under the car I've got these, they're fuel line clamps, and I've got little bolts that go in there, and I've also got these nutserts. So I'm going to drill underneath the car and put a hole, up of these underneath the car, and then mount these onto the nutsert, which actually goes in that way. And then I'll just clip the fuel line into that, so it'll look nice and neat and tidy as well. So let's give this a whirl. Okay, so I've drilled like a 4mm pilot hole, then a 6mm pilot hole, a 6mm hole, and put these 6mm nutserts in. I put in one there, one down there, all the way along underneath the car. So now I can mount up my fuel line brackets. So there's one. This has got the bolt going through and mounting up to the bracket, so that's nice and tight. So now I'll just do the rest. So there's my fuel pump mount, and then you can see the fuel line mounts underneath the car, go all the way up to the front. So these are just for the hard line fuel lines to mount up. That's the last of the mounting up the fuel line mounts underneath the bonnet. So the other fuel lines will come up through there and lock into there, and then they'll spread out to different parts there. So that's the fuel mounts there. I might need to do still some more at the back, we'll see how we go. Okay, so here we have it. Here is my fuel circuit. So all these bags, and bags of stuff now all equate to these fittings. So I got my pickup in my tank, which you've seen me make earlier. I'm running rubber fuel line to one end of the pump, rubber fuel line out of the pump, just because the pump will vibrate so much. Although it's mounted by a rubber mount, you just don't want hard lines going to the pump, because especially aluminium, they'll end up fracturing. So rubber line and then into a fixed line. So the rubber hose will go between those two there and into a fixed line fitting all the way up to the car, up to the front, into the bottom of the fuel filter, in the fuel filter, out of the fuel filter, into the fuel rail of the car. And then out of the fuel rail, it goes through to a regulator, out of the regulator, down to, so out of the fuel line, into the regulator, in the bottom of the regulator, and out to the fuel, another metal fuel line, which will run back down and into the tank. So all those fittings, I reckon it's probably about $400 worth of fittings at least, is all in these little fittings here. You're probably wondering why I've got some blue and red and some black. Well, most of the stuff that's black is under the car, so you can't see it. And I was too lazy to do all the blue and red stuff is mainly under the bonnet. You might see a couple every now and then, but hey, it's not a show car, it's just meant for a purpose. So next thing to do is mount up my fuel filter onto the firewall. I'll get some more nutserts and mount that up. So I'll drill that and do that next. So I've just gone to mount up my fuel filter. So I've drilled a 3mm hole, 6mm hole, and then a 9mm hole into the firewall, and then squashed in my nutserts with those painful to use aluminium nuts. And I've got my fuel filter now, my bracket, aluminium bracket, and that will just mount on there. And it does. Screw in, please. Fit, yeah. Alright, so then I've got my braided line. So my fuel line, I've got an aluminium fuel line connected going up into the fuel filter. And there's the out of the fuel filter. Braided hose line will run from the fuel filter to the rail and pressurize the rail, the top and the bottom rail in the 13B. And then out of the bottom of the rail, it'll come up to my regulator, which sets the fuel pressure in the rail. So that'll rolling up into that, and then it runs the bleed back out of the regulator, which is now mounted up to here, down here, back down to my plastic clips. I'll click in there and run back down to the fuel tank. And then it'll be the fuel system all done once I've made up those aluminium lines. So that's the next job now. Okay, so this is the top of the fuel tank from the back of the car, and you see I've ran the rubber fuel line out of the tank and down underneath the car, and it goes underneath the car up above the diff, and from above the diff down to the feed side of the fuel pump. You can see the fuel pump there has got a fitting out on the black fitting, which with the one-way valve, and the blue fitting there. I've just got to run a bit of a loop around and hook up to, I want to do a rubber line, a bit of a U-turn metal line, and then a rubber line into the blue fitting there. And you can see the other aluminium line coming from the front of the car. So you can see now I've done all the way down to the front with the new 3/8 fuel line, and that's the return line. It's not secured yet to the car, it's just temporarily fitted up, and it goes to the back of the feed return on the tank. So once all that's done, the fuel system's done, so it's not much to hook that up and then we're done. So I've just made up these fittings. So there's the fuel line coming up from the feed off the tank, the bottom of the fuel filter, out of the fuel filter. I've made up these new lines now, braided lines into the fuel rail here. Does a loop around into the bottom rail down there, and it comes out of this new feed line here, up to the regulator, and then down by the aluminium fuel line, back down to the firewall, and back down to return to the tank. So, there's a lot of mucking around, but that's the end of the fuel system. Well, that's the end of chapter 17. I hope you've enjoyed it. Just a few more things to button up the fuel system and it's all done. The next thing I need to do is start focusing on the wiring, which is going to be a bit of a challenge. Anyhow, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for watching.